In March of 2025, PepsiCo paid $1.95 billion for a company that sells cans of fizzy water with apple cider vinegars and plant fiber. The brand is called Poppy. Each can costs $2.50 to $4.50. 1 month earlier, Olipop was valued at $1.85 billion. Weeks later, Coca-Cola launched Simply Pop. 3 of the largest corporations on earth were fighting over the right to sell you something your great-great-grandmother made on her kitchen counter for pennies. The probiotic cultures inside those cans are the exact same type of bacteria that occur naturally when you drop a tablespoon of grated ginger into a jar of sugar water and wait 5 days. The soda industry did not invent gut health. They removed it from your drinks a century ago, and now they are selling it back at a $2 billion valuation. The plant that makes the whole thing possible costs less than $2 at the grocery store. Grows in a pot on your kitchen counter and multiplies itself every season so you never have to buy it again. But before I reveal how to build this system yourself, if you are sick of paying for toxic fertilizers, I have put together a free $0 harvest blueprint for you. It reveals 7 zero-cost fertilizers that actually outperform everything you know, and the lazy, no-dig method that eliminates weeding permanently. One of my readers used the fertilizer trick inside, and his garden grew double the size of his neighbor's. To get instant access to the blueprint and a weekly forgotten gardening hack, click the first link in the description below, or scan the QR code on the screen right now if you are watching on television. Just open your camera app on your phone and then hold it against the screen. A yellow button should pop out. Now let me show you the plant, the science, and the exact method that makes every bottle of commercial soda on your grocery shelf completely unnecessary. The plant is ginger. Zingiber officinale, a tropical perennial that has been cultivated for over 5,000 years, making it one of the oldest domesticated plants on Earth. Ancient Chinese texts called it the universal medicine. Indian Ayurvedic practitioners prescribed it 2,000 years before the first European pharmacist opened shop. You have seen it 1,000 times in the produce aisle without realizing you were looking at a self-replicating soda factory. That is because ginger does something almost no other common kitchen ingredient can do. Its skin is covered in wild yeast and lactic acid bacteria, the same families of microorganisms that make sourdough bread rise, that turn cabbage into sauerkraut, and that convert grape juice into wine. When you combine fresh ginger with sugar and water in a jar and feed it daily, those native microbes wake up, begin consuming the sugar, and produce 2 things: carbon dioxide, which creates natural fizzy carbonation, and organic acids, which preserve the drink, support your gut lining, and dramatically reduce the sugar content of the final product. The sugar you put in is not for you. It is food for the bacteria. By the time you drink it, the microbes have eaten most of it and converted it into compounds your body can actually use. Let that sink in. You add sugar to the recipe, but the sugar never reaches your bloodstream in its original form. The microbes intercept it. They metabolize it into lactic acid, acetic acid, and carbon dioxide. The drink that reaches your lips is lower in sugar than what went into the jar. No artificial sweetener on earth can make that claim. No zero-calorie chemical can say it actively feeds beneficial bacteria in your gut while simultaneously reducing the sugar content of the beverage. Only fermentation does that, and it does it for free. This living starter culture is called a ginger bug, and it is one of the oldest biotechnologies in human history. Feed it once a week with a tablespoon of ginger and a tablespoon of sugar, and it will live on your kitchen counter indefinitely. 1 jar. Infinite soda. Forever. But the ginger bug is only half the story. The other half is the plant itself. Ginger does not grow from seeds. It grows from pieces of its own root. You cut a finger off a rhizome, bury it 2 inches deep in a pot of loose soil, and within 8 weeks, green shoots push through the surface. In 8 to 10 months, that single finger has multiplied into a full hand of ginger the size of your palm. You harvest what you need, replant a piece, and the cycle starts again. One rhizome becomes 10. 10 become 100. The plant literally manufactures more of itself every season, and every piece you harvest can either go into your next batch of soda or back into the soil to grow more. You can grow ginger in every climate on Earth. It thrives outdoors year-round in zones 9 through 12. In colder regions, it grows beautifully in containers that you bring indoors before frost. A pot 12 inches wide is enough. Ginger prefers partial shade, moist soil, and temperatures above 55 degrees. It asks for almost nothing in return for what it gives you. Researchers at Virginia State University found that baby ginger, the kind you harvest young after just 4 to 6 months, contains 2 to 3 times more antioxidant activity than the mature ginger sold in grocery stores. The younger the harvest, the more powerful the medicine. And here's the detail that gardeners love. Ginger is not just a food plant, it is a beautiful one. The shoots grow 3 to 4 feet tall with glossy tropical leaves. Some varieties produce stunning cone-shaped flowers. It looks like a houseplant that belongs in a design magazine. And it happens to produce unlimited soda ingredients while it sits there, being gorgeous. A single organic ginger rhizome from the grocery store costs less than $2. From that $2 purchase, you can produce an unlimited, self-replicating supply of both the plant and the soda starter for the rest of your life. The total ongoing cost of ingredients after that first purchase is a bag of sugar and tap water. We are talking about pennies per bottle of finished soda. Pennies. While PepsiCo pays nearly $2 billion for the privilege of selling you the same biology in a branded aluminum can. So how did we get here? How did a kitchen counter ferment that sustained families for centuries become a $2 billion acquisition target? The answer is one of the most important and deliberately buried stories in food history. In the mid-18th century, ginger beer was the dominant homemade beverage across England and the American colonies. These were not the clear, sweet, dead liquids we call ginger ale today. They were thick, cloudy, spicy, and alive with microbial cultures. Families brewed them the same way they baked bread, using living starters passed from neighbor to neighbor. Ginger beer was a daily health tonic. It settled the stomach. It preserved safely in an era when plain water could kill you through cholera and typhoid. Victorian-era ginger beer was exported in heavy stoneware bottles designed to withstand the pressure of natural fermentation. These bottles were prized possessions. The drink inside was respected as medicine, as much as refreshment. Households maintained 2 types of living starters. The first was called the ginger beer plant, a gelatinous symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast that was passed from neighbor to neighbor like a sourdough mother. The second was the ginger bug, simpler and more accessible, made from nothing but fresh ginger, sugar, and water. Both produced the same result, a living, fizzing, probiotic beverage that kept families healthy in an era when clean water did not exist. Think about that context for a moment. In the 1850s, London physician John Snow traced a cholera outbreak to a single contaminated water pump on Broad Street. Drinking plain water was genuinely dangerous. Fermented beverages were not luxuries. They were survival technology. The fermentation process suppressed harmful pathogens and made water safe to consume. Every household that kept a ginger bug was running a tiny water purification system powered by bacteria. This was not folk superstition. This was applied microbiology, centuries before the word microbiology existed. Then in 1855, the British Parliament passed excise tax laws imposing heavy fees on any beverage with an alcohol content above 2%. Traditional brewers were forced to shorten their fermentation times drastically to stay under the limit. In doing so, they sacrificed the deep microbial profile and complex organic acids that gave the drink its medicinal value. The living culture was the first casualty of regulation. The killing blow came in the early 20th century. Forced carbonation was invented. Instead of allowing microorganisms to create bubbles through days of slow fermentation, machines began injecting pressurized carbon dioxide gas directly into water. In 1904, a Canadian pharmacist named John McLaughlin launched Canada Dry Pale Ginger Ale, a crystal-clear, machine-carbonated, pasteurized liquid with no living cultures, no fermentation enzymes, and no medicinal compounds. It looked clean. It looked modern. It looked like progress. And the marketing machine that followed made sure you believed that. Coca-Cola and Pepsi spent millions positioning their clear, factory-carbonated drinks as the pinnacle of modern hygiene. Murky, cloudy, alive, that was primitive. Clear, sterile, consistent, that was civilized. Within a generation, the living ferment disappeared from mainstream culture. The soda counter replaced the kitchen counter, and the companies that killed the original soda now own the entire category. But the erasure did not stop at marketing. It went deeper than most people realize. In 1954, the president of the Sugar Research Foundation gave a speech to the American Society of Sugar Beet Technologists. He laid out a business strategy so brazen it reads like fiction. If Americans could be convinced to eat a low-fat diet, he argued, they would need to replace those calories with carbohydrates. And if sugar maintained its share of the carbohydrate market, per capita sugar consumption would increase by more than a third. The plan was not to prove sugar was safe. The plan was to make fat the villain, so that sugar could fill the void. In 1965, the Sugar Research Foundation launched what it internally called Project 226. They recruited scientists from the Harvard University School of Public Health to produce a literature review on the relationship between sugar, fat, and heart disease. They paid the researchers the equivalent of roughly $50,000 in today's money. They provided the studies they wanted reviewed. They received drafts of the paper before publication. And in 1967, the review was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. It concluded that dietary fat, not sugar, was the primary cause of coronary heart disease. The sugar industry's funding was never disclosed. In 2016, researchers at the University of California, San Francisco uncovered 1,500 pages of internal correspondence between the Sugar Research Foundation and those Harvard scientists. The documents were published in JAMA Internal Medicine. One of the researchers said they were able to derail the discussion about sugar for decades. One of the sugar industry executives wrote to the scientists after reviewing the draft, "Let me assure you, this is quite what we had in mind, and we look forward to its appearance in print." That single paper shaped American dietary policy for half a century. Generations of Americans avoided fat, ate more sugar, and watched rates of obesity and diabetes explode. The federal government's first dietary guidelines in 1977 were authored in part by one of the same Harvard researchers who had taken the sugar industry's money. He went on to become the head of human nutrition at the USDA. The fox was guarding the henhouse from the inside. While the country spent half a century avoiding fat and eating more sugar, rates of obesity and diabetes exploded. The very thing that traditional fermented sodas did naturally, converting sugar into beneficial acids and reducing the glycemic load, had been removed from the American diet and replaced with 35 grams of unprocessed sugar per 12-ounce can. That is what sits in every can of Canada Dry, Coca-Cola, and Pepsi on the shelf today. Dead water, industrial sugar, forced carbonation, and zero biological activity. Now here is where the science gets genuinely remarkable. And this is the part that should make you put down whatever you are drinking right now. The primary bioactive compound in raw ginger is called 6-gingerol. It is a well-documented anti-inflammatory. But when lactic acid bacteria ferment ginger, and this has been confirmed in multiple peer-reviewed studies published in journals, including the International Journal of Molecular Sciences and Food Chemistry, they convert 6-gingerol into a compound called 6-chagall. Research has demonstrated that 6-chagall has significantly higher antioxidant and anti-inflammatory potency than raw ginger. The fermentation process does not just preserve the medicine in ginger, it upgrades it. You are not drinking a weaker version of ginger when you ferment it. You are drinking a stronger one. Here's the shareable detail. A study on fermented ginger found the total polyphenol content, the category of plant compounds most strongly associated with disease prevention, increased substantially after fermentation by lactic acid bacteria. The same bacteria also produced new flavor compounds, including fruity esters, that made the fermented product taste better than raw ginger juice. Nature designed a system where the healthier the product becomes, the better it tastes. No food scientist in a laboratory has ever achieved that combination. Evolution did it in a jar on a kitchen counter. That is not all. During fermentation, the total polyphenol and flavonoid content of ginger increases substantially. The lactic acid produced during the process lowers the pH of the drink, creating an environment that suppresses harmful pathogens while supporting beneficial gut bacteria. The carbon dioxide produced is a natural byproduct of microbial metabolism, not an industrial injection. And the sugar? The microbes eat it. A properly fermented ginger bug soda contains a fraction of the sugar that went into the recipe because the bacteria consumed it as fuel and converted it into organic acids and carbon dioxide. Compare that to what the industry offers. A 12-ounce can of Canada Dry Ginger Ale contains approximately 35 grams of sugar and no living cultures. A 12-ounce serving of Welch's grape juice contains 54 grams. Minute Maid orange juice contains about 33 grams. These drinks are pasteurized, meaning every beneficial enzyme and microorganism has been destroyed by heat, leaving behind a massive fructose load with no biological infrastructure to help your body process it. Your ginger bug soda does the opposite. It delivers live cultures, bioactive compounds, natural carbonation, and a dramatically reduced sugar content, all from a jar on your kitchen counter that cost you almost nothing to build. Here's how to build that jar. The ingredients are ginger, sugar, and water. That is the entire list. Grate 2 tablespoons of organic ginger with the skin on. The skin is where the wild yeast and bacteria live. Mix it with 2 tablespoons of plain cane sugar and 1 cup of filtered water in a clean glass jar. Cover with a coffee filter or cheesecloth held by a rubber band. Every day for 5 to 7 days, add 1 tablespoon of grated ginger and 1 tablespoon of sugar. Stir vigorously. Keep the jar in a warm spot between 65 and 75 degrees Fahrenheit, out of direct sunlight. Around day 4 or 5, you will hear a faint hiss when you stir. Bubbles will gather at the surface. The liquid will turn slightly cloudy. That cloudiness is life. Those are billions of lactobacillus and wild yeast cells that have colonized your jar and are now producing carbon dioxide, lactic acid, and organic compounds with every passing hour. To make the soda, boil a half gallon of water with a large handful of sliced fresh ginger for 20 minutes. This is your flavor base, but you are not limited to ginger. This is where your garden becomes a soda factory. Every fruit, herb, and edible flower you grow is a new flavor waiting to be carbonated. Elderflower soda, lavender lemonade, lemon balm and honey, mint and lime, blackberry ginger, turmeric and black pepper, rosemary grapefruit. The ginger bug is the engine. The flavor is whatever your garden produces. You are not choosing between 12 flavors on a store shelf. You are choosing between everything that grows. And here is where it gets even better for gardeners. Most of the herbs and fruits that make the best sodas are also among the easiest plants to grow. Mint spreads so aggressively most gardeners consider it a weed. Elderberry bushes produce enormous clusters of flowers and fruit with almost zero maintenance. Lavender thrives in poor soil and full sun. Lemon balm seeds everywhere. These are not exotic plants that require special knowledge. These are the common, vigorous, nearly unkillable plants that grow in the margins of every garden in the country. Pair them with a ginger bug, and each one becomes a flavor of soda you will never find in any store, because no corporation can patent a recipe made from whatever happens to be blooming in your backyard this week. Add 1 cup of sugar to the hot tea and stir until dissolved. Let it cool completely to room temperature. If you add your ginger bug while the liquid is hot, you will kill the culture instantly. Once cool, strain out the solids and add half a cup of your active ginger bug liquid. Pour the mixture into pressure-safe flip-top fermentation bottles. Leave them on the counter for 48 to 72 hours. The microbes will consume the remaining sugar and produce natural, creamy carbonation. When the bottles feel firm to the touch, move them to the refrigerator. They will keep for several weeks, alive but dormant. One critical safety note: natural fermentation produces real pressure. Use only bottles rated for fermentation, the kind with the wire and ceramic flip-top closure. Never use regular glass bottles or mason jars for the carbonation step. They can shatter. Burp your bottles once a day during counter fermentation by briefly opening the cap to release excess pressure. This is a living process and it demands respect. Now step back and look at what you have built. You have a ginger plant that grows in a pot on your patio, multiplying itself every season, producing fresh rhizome that you harvest with a knife. You have a ginger bug starter that lives on your counter indefinitely, fed once a week, producing carbonation on demand. You have an unlimited supply of naturally fermented soda made from whatever fruits and herbs you grow in your garden. The total startup cost was a $2 piece of ginger and a bag of sugar. The ongoing cost is essentially zero. The system is self-replicating, self-carbonating, and self-medicating. There is no bottle to buy, no subscription, no brand, no corporation standing between you and a glass of something genuinely good for your body. The entire global soda industry, worth over $400 billion a year, depends on you never learning that a jar of ginger water left on a warm counter for 5 days does everything their factories do, except it does it better and it does it for free. This is not anti-corporate rage for the sake of it. This is arithmetic. PepsiCo paid nearly $2 billion for a company selling prebiotic soda at $4.50 a can. You can produce the same biological product with the same probiotic cultures, the same organic acids, the same prebiotic fiber from real ginger root, for less than 10 cents a bottle. The difference between those two numbers is not innovation. It is marketing. It is the distance between what something costs to make and what someone can convince you to pay for it. And that distance is where the entire modern food system lives. The Amish and Old Order Mennonite communities have been brewing fermented ginger drinks, switchels, and shrubs for generations, without interruption. They never stopped, they never bought the marketing, and they never traded their kitchen countercultures for factory cans. Their rates of obesity, diabetes, and metabolic disease are a fraction of the national average. That is not a coincidence. That is a consequence of never outsourcing your biology to a corporation. The switchel is worth knowing about specifically. It is a traditional Amish harvest drink made from water, apple cider vinegar, ginger, and a sweetener like honey or molasses. Field workers drank it for hydration and electrolyte replacement during long days of manual labor. It predates every sports drink on the market by at least 2 centuries. It costs nothing to make. It contains natural electrolytes, anti-inflammatory compounds from the ginger, and beneficial acids from the vinegar. Gatorade, owned by PepsiCo, generates over $5 billion in annual revenue selling sugar water with synthetic electrolytes and artificial colors. The Amish drink that does the same job costs less than a dime and requires no factory, no brand, and no team of food scientists. There's a pattern here, if you are willing to see it. Living ferments replaced by dead factory products, traditional kitchen knowledge replaced by branded marketing, free biological processes replaced by $2 billion acquisitions. The gap between what you need and what you are sold is the most profitable distance in the modern economy. And the ginger bug sits right in the middle of that gap, quietly proving that the emperor has no clothes. One jar, one plant, infinite soda, no chemicals, no factory, no subscription, no permission needed. The ginger is waiting in the produce aisle right now. The bacteria are already on its skin. The only ingredient the recipe has ever been missing is someone willing to stop buying and start brewing. Your ginger bug does not expire. It does not require a software update. It does not need a subscription renewal. If you go on vacation, put it in the refrigerator. It will go dormant and wait for you. Take it out when you get back, feed it for 2 days, and it picks up exactly where it left off. It is the most patient and reliable piece of kitchen technology you will ever own. And it produces something that a $2 billion corporation cannot improve upon, no matter how much money they spend trying. If this changed how you think about what is sitting in your refrigerator right now, send it to someone who still pays $4 for a can of sparkling water with vitamins on the label. The best way to dismantle a $2 billion illusion is to show people what it actually costs to make. If you want more stories like this, hit subscribe. There's a lot more buried out there waiting to be found.